Hey YouTube. Smooth transitions, low gradients, shallow bends. These are the three demons you must slay if you are to be successful in spaghetti. Look at that. Look at that shit. I do believe last we spoke I was still working on the vanilla yard, vanilla in the sense of being ordinary, though development has shifted largely to the CCBD double-decker HOOTSPAJOOP yard and even more so to the associated Interchange. At least such goes the order of projects mentioned this episode in order of exponentially more time spent on than the last listed. Why am I telling you this? I don't know, probably as a segue to telling you that I also spent some time installing a boat gate, which is first on the list, even though it took a fair bloody chunk. Projects, you say, do go on. Oopsie, not so fast road time, save something for the overview. Then they'll be compelled to watch not only the end, but the juicy middle as well. Now, this pillar is not on the right angle, so plop that there for a sec. Use my handy dandy move it to align to that one. And then move it has gone to shit lag wise, so we do have fun on Twitch. I will say this though, the product of all that orientating, that is the pillars, near affords an independent episode. If perhaps the process weren't so monotonous, frankly that's not true, I could talk angles until I die, and it weren't a cleverly devised attempt to enthrall Reddit with ungraduated deviants. Hey, now how's about them trains? You see, back in my day, spaghetti meant something. You tell 'em, Petey. This was loosely based off of, well, not based off of, but derived according to the same objectives and principles, I do love to showcase an old build, as this old build, which I referred to at the time as a train highway or something. It's lost on me now. Oh, what happened to my imagination? That's right. Now, can this be justified? From the man who brought you over 9,000 vehicles on a single S-bend, and this interchange I already referenced in another video, but which seems relevant again given the similarity of the subject at hand, and I want more people to see because really that was some of my most novel work, wasn't it? Butthurt town planners hate him. Well, there you have it. Now, how's about that plan? Not only do I not have or care if I have, but I don't even know if I have a plan at this point. Building the vanilla yard. A rail depot and skinny sheds prompt laying long track segments to skewer the buildings, not that long after bending one set so the depot rails merge straight ahead, and the depot is wrapped so the other set bends in due course. I'm varying the median width of various sets because Chicago did it, and Chicago looks cool. If it's good enough for Chicago, it's good enough for me. That's always been my motto here on Road Time, right? With some shape to go off of, Proto und Spiralplatz rears its noodly appendage for the purpose of connecting the surrounding yada-yadas to the newly positioned yard. This is a fairly consequential addition for surrounding yada-yadas, cementing axes for them to follow when they themselves are made more concrete. The loop follows a bend after the bridge so it remains centered, preventing loppiness but also setting the bridge up for other connections that would have it appear as the Platz's fanning center. Proto though it is, I think the setup will remain reasonably intact, and at least for now it guides the inner edge of the rail yard, placement of which I forgot to record, along with a now ovular looking Platz that mirrors the post-bridge bend straight to connect the outer edge. The new inner edge meets also unfilmed deviated stadium edge offshoot, mirrored at, I think the same angle. Sounds like something I would do. I get way too specific with the duplicability of double to single rail transitions. I practice to be slowly dwindled to a proximity as curves become more extreme. Remember when this curve here was considered too sharp by project standards? Ha! Old Platz looking a little empty, so is fleshed out with a bridge adjacent yard and placemark tunnel to somewhere in front of We Dubai now. The rest is basically just filling in tracks, though not without conundrum over how to merge the varying median widths and other such things, e.g. this pair of triplets where the inframedian is maintained and, with more inspiration from Chicago, two of the intertracks merged to leave a pair before merging again to a single. Pretty simple, but not a decision I would have made with ease left to my own devices. So yeah, just some more tracks, maybe a building here and there, and looks like we're, wait a minute. What's this? Smooth it out, bro? Oh, Do you know what? I hoped at the end of this long expose I would be left with something jagged and clunky, but you think I should smooth it out, bro? Thanks for the hot tip, nappy boy. Building the CCBD HOOTSPAJOOP yard. With Vanilla Yard converging to point exactingly toward the Central Business District Distribution Centre, in case you forgot, I follow the direction, expecting to deviate just long enough to solidify Vanilla's edge, ready to polish up the remainder for the end of episode 3. Ha! First stop is these drawbridges I placed last time, though I'm not sure I ever mentioned them, which indicate a section of harbour requiring low connections, between the CCBDDC lower deck and port 2. I replaced the middle bridge with an island because 3 separate draws in tandem would be odd, and the resulting shape of the harbour could be dope. I determined 3 double tracks and 1 single can fit the width. A line of tracks on the harbour side are ready to go, placed last time with the intention of somehow merging passenger and freight lines. I decide to distinguish a passenger passage by lowering the tracks, wrapped in keys, and I figure only 3 sets are required, the 2 leading to Hex Station and only 1 for the secondary perpendicular main station, on the basis that the other available platform will lead to Hex. After testing the required bridge height for channel ship clearance, another drawbridge is the only option to enable an appropriately steep passage approach. And I duplicate to the other end as well, anticipating lots to connect. The passage approach still seems a little sharp, so I scooch the channel, then add 1 more bridge further into the channel, since I am peddling the notion that all freight hubs are to form a faux single entity, and the currently marked route to port 1 is slightly less than integrated. From the latest connection veers a squiggle round the warehouse, opposing via forming a T intersection to skim the main station, rather than joining like the passenger lines. Kinda useless, just roughly shaping the area and likely to be used by other stuff later. Adjacent to the passenger passage run the upper harbour deck rails, 1 double track to act as more of a thoroughfare/interchange connector, with several singles spaced randomly. The upper channel deck and lower harbour deck are also marked before dragging out the approach from upper harbour deck to drawbridge, which determines where the deck will merge, and the 2 harbourmost passage tracks follow suit. BT dubs, there is a key there now. That deck be staunch. Merge the upper deck does, though into multiple double tracks, only 1 of which approaches the bridge, others proceeding to channel deck to hint at a certain synergy of the 2. And the divine complicator, connection from the lower harbour deck to upper channel deck. I'm gonna go ahead and stop you right there. That's pretty well the HOOTSPAJOOP formation. What's that old saying? The rest is interchange. Building the interchange. Continue the last curve by injecting radii, spawning more from the center point to join at 90 degrees. So that's at 90, should be at 90, just trying to get the 90 degrees. So close, so close. 90 at 90 degrees. Do have to be specific. Or 90.1 will do. I think that's the 90 I want. The loop splits at some point or other into the more or less 180 thoroughfare ramp, tighter loop-de-loop for one-way bridge segment connection, and ooh, spicy 90-degree formation of larger opposing loop. And hey, stay with me. No need to go ditching saves just yet. What if the loop-de-loop were to continue as a full circle from underneath, joined by remaining passage line that switches orbit at the big loop? Yeah, what he just said. Hold up. Those loops weren't easy, you know. How do you build the perfect ice cream cone? I can't believe my road time hijinks created such a nice looking curve. God damn, that was a good curve. Well, you draw a guide perpendicular to the point at which the curve sharpens, uncovering the radius by trial and error. It's at whichever point the 2 segments meet at equal length. I realise as I demonstrate that forming an isosceles would more promptly, accurately, and easily determine the point at which these are equal, I think. I didn't test it. And 1 is enough. Ebin Green Snek. You're not wrong, me from 45 days ago. At the time of writing, probably over 60 by the time this airs. Green tracks. What is the meaning of this? All you need is railway narrow mainline tracks and catenary replacer if you want to remove the wires, which I do. Who could be that clever, pedantic little fellow? I wonder if the more or less 180 thoroughfare ramp should bypass the upper harbour deck for some time to avoid the steepness. However, that would defeat the point of having it run to the deck in the first place. And boy, you thought that was steep, did you? Another curve opposes halfway along the big curve to the channel-most point of the upper channel deck, which will later refer the channel passage. Then the big curve continues into a loop connecting lower harbour deck and passenger passage, while the small curve projects to follow course as the big loop flattens out, adding another exit to the upper harbour deck thoroughfare to join somewhere back here, and burying the part of the big loop that would interfere with the rail yard, but actually not doing that because the jagged terrain shadows caused by overlapping networks render through surfaces which would achieve such burying. And finally, actually, yes, doing that. Even though forcing terrain to smooth imperfectly with not babby terraforming network is cumbersome, because what other goddamned choice do you have? Channel drawbridge access from the lower deck splits just before the small curve, hugging big loop slightly so this wee curve has more room before the bridge supports. This is the part where the channel-most edge of the upper channel deck forms the channel passage, to which connects the prior nebulously directed thoroughfare exit, conundritic in deciding whether to parallel the warehouse or not, in the end extrapolating from the core shape of one large, one small curve to form one large, one small cone, which equals not parallel. And hey, since I'm always asked about my motives, I can reveal to you now my guiding religion, of which this little dancing snowman is the deity. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. I am getting too hot. Raunchy junction here as the big loop joins the most recent connection, but heading the opposite direction. Remember that hint of certain synergy between upper harbour plus upper channel decks? Others proceeding to channel deck to hint at a certain synergy of the two. Can I flash back to the current episode? Anyway, in the words of Audrina Patridge, longing to rekindle dwindling best friendship with Lauren Conrad on season 4 of The Hills, okay, well, let's do it! First up, the channel-most yard rail merges to shift angle of the remaining 4 yard rails so they pretty evenly split the loop when a bordering road is added. And y'all are going to want to separate the innermost interchange track, which is a passenger line, and stick her under yard's course en route to widened channel passage to form another tunnel. Then the yard merges in paired curves with the other deck segments. I do wish for direct connection between channel drawbridge and upper channel deck, plotting a Chicagoian diagonal splitting of the tracks. However, I don't know how to account for both directions without getting all wonky about it. So I settle for a loop route that exits the yard earlier than I would like, and alright, you got me. I did have this all figured out at one point, you know, but I think the corresponding entry was this tunnel widening big loop tracer caught by a special narrow iteration of the deck after also tracing the loop-de-loop. All the relevant destinations are there, but I may need to refresh my memory of what I intended for some of these, or just sweep it all under the rug, main. Hey, I'll do whatever it takes. Deck synergy concludes with direct connection to the special iteration from harbour side via the new loop-de-loop tracer, which veers to fan. Oh geez, here come more routes, the details of which are too sophisticated to explain. I don't want to inundate you with my stringent consideration on this matter. Let's breeze through. As the aforementioned loop-de-loop tracer, supposedly part of the early channel deck exit route, misses the exit seizing double track on account of utilising the off-placed tunnel, an entry chute is free to wrap the raunchy junction, catching curve from channel passage along the way, on the way to, a split. First, continuing around Big Loop and inside Little Loop to Lower Harbour Deck, then straight ahead before turning to hug the warehouse. A route bordered by U-turn around warehouse, the entry of which utilises the track that will remain when the special yard merges, and no, we're not tracing the loop-de-loop for a third time. And platform encloses part of the passenger passage to give the warehouse route some meat to work with, and forgot to hit record, eh? You had one job. I am of course referring to this segment, a tunnel stacked under a tunnel, the appearance of which you no doubt distinguished from the heaping pile. Okay, took me a while to figure out where this began when I reviewed the footage, but you clever, lazy thing, you. It spawns after the tunnel entry from Channel Drawbridge, and what it looks like in between here and here? Out of sight, out of mind. Anyhow, that continues around the Harbour Deck's quay, where it will join the existing lower deck connection once it reaches ground level, and an off-ramp on the other side to join the upper deck thoroughfare one more time. Much loop. Very ramp. even more meat for the infrastructure, adding a second story to the warehouse and some placemark roads, and indeed the special yard merges. I start wrapping the lower harbour deck yard around the channel side, keying off the interchange as we go, joining to the tunnel and spanning to the next, requiring that this tunnel move forward to run the key parallel with the yard. A few tracks for the channel side, cleaning up the dock and merging before the bridge to leave some space for industry stuff. Boatgate. Boatgate! Welcome to another Road Time mini-segment. Meet your host this evening, the Boatgate. While working on the docks, I wonder how this general area is going to pan out, and envision not one, but two boat gates to make use of the drawbridge median formation. I'm just copying the image from the page of this asset, surrounding a pair of mace length rings outer wall parts, and the course they would follow upon opening with keys. I enclose the expanded median with two sets, angled fairly randomly but with ample toiling to land in a way I would call balanced. I am however concerned by the span of the arch bridge now landing where is well and truly no longer the most conveniently narrow water body, so add another channel, or perhaps more natural continuation of the river, to necessitate. It takes a few attempts to find the right set of angles to taper the boat gate opening with the narrower drawbridge channel. Let's finish this. Retain remaining upper channel deck yard edge. Those tunnel entries, not that wide. Convert to PO and stretch. Fill the preceding oddly shaped warehouse corner with keys, but they're a little jagged, so diagonal off the corners, then give the passage its own floor. Also situate the bottom interchange route by snuggling between shallower Japanese retainers. Lower harbour deck to harbour drawbridge was an obvious one, and caps off the harbourmost tracing of the small cone as a continuation to the harbourmost destination, the harbour drawbridge. Diagonal offs too jagged, so puff out like marshmallows, and oh god, here it comes. Building the pillars. Well, at least the pillars only took a single recording. Yep. Oh, 21 recordings of the single 28th recording. I'm using that old gem, Ronix's expressway pillars, though whereas I would usually bulk them up by duplication, I've gone the much more efficient route of converting them to procedural objects and stretching them that way. I run pillars perpendicular to the channel-most curve by drawing along it at even iterations, extending tracks as guides to line them up with. 35, 11, 12, 12, 12, 11, it turned out to be 13, 35, 34, 33, 34, that's 35, okay, no, and 33, okay, then if that is 34, that's 35 now. This one is 34, and that is only 33, what? Okay, it's 34 one way, 33 the other way. That makes no sense. So that's 34, that's 34. Okay, they're all 34 now, sort of. Hard to tell. Would guessing be more accurate than measuring, since measuring sucked last time? It is easier to have less work. I want the yard, as much as possible, to be clear of supports so they fall along a guiding rail bordering the edge, forming their wee little fisher bone formation. Clustered segments of track, more often than not, share the same horizontal pillar, accommodating height as it crosses, with another vertical support for every change, in almost every case. BT dubs this placemark perpendicular big loop, but who cares, because I need to replace all these pieces since I hadn't set the render distance for PO far enough. Seriously, I do question my motives sometimes. There's a hole here, so obviously another route must go through it. Inside big loop to straighten out with raunchy junction, finishing at warehouse, which is very much a duplicate of this route. It ain't, because one is destined for the upper warehouse level. Duh. You want to know why this single recording is 21 long? I discovered Node Controller, or at least its gargantuan utility for smoothing shixed out, so every route needs to be curated along the way before pillar positioning can be solidified. I take the somewhat average of these two curves to run the next set of guides from, pillars spanning triangle formation, though leave as a placemark before applying the intricate height changes, as this space is still very open and I'm not yet sure how all will jibe. Sidebar from pillars, an infuriating, if useful, enfranchisement of Node Controller is the control over where messy bridge segments terminate. Still messy immo, but politely restrained on the macro. Ooh, dueling triangles, don't mind if I do. Following the harbourmost edge in the opposing direction as well. That was just the test version, so let's get some guides in there and fit some horizontals to width. Hold up, the base of the triangle is where a few distinguishable sets of curves meet. The base segment is where pillars break the center of triangle curve, running guides at the innermost from the loop-de-loop, still forming singular bent horizontals, except for a couple because there are more pillars out than in. Continuing up the passage is pretty simple, though train clearance needs to be tested with the added depth of the supporting pillar. Get a load of this guy. Okay, nothing's happening. Running pillars down the lower harbour deck now. Redo the fisher. Crud, the bridge approaches. Nothing's happening. Do you really insist on pillars for the bridge? It's over. That is every single pillar finished. Oh boy, what a fiasco that was. Well, okay, I'll whack down some industry. Bam! Terrain routes. I pretty much said it all and I have blown out my runtime, but let's get a visual on these Rudy Tooties. Oh yeah, I just slapped down some stations for testing purposes. Whatever, pretty basic, it's not important. Took hours. How's that view for you? Is that doing it for you? Ignore the underground routes at the edge, they're just for completing loop routes for the test. Channel drawbridge to lower channel deck. Lower channel deck doesn't receive much action, with most interchange access via the lower harbour deck incline. The relevant thoroughfare is one way and will, I figure, loop back via port 1 around Chongqing. Channel drawbridge to lower harbour deck. This one may be redundant for reasons soon explained. I don't want to delve into the contributing routes now as it would break alphabetical order, but I included it for the sake of seeing every possible route in use. Channel drawbridge to upper channel deck special. A thoroughfare runs either side of the warehouse, to which the special deck is a precursor on the channel side, a pass to be required by some freight from port 2. Blah blah, something about it being a mineral port, sending said minerals for special processing. That'll do. Channel drawbridge to warehouse plus warehouse to warehouse. These two aren't related, though they overlap. In some cases I was just running out of line colours and these were easy to merge. Channel drawbridge to warehouse is another one for the port 1 loop, and warehouse to warehouse is just a simple loop from one side of the warehouse to the other, or potentially a greater loop to the ordinary yard. Channel drawbridge to warehouse upper, similar to last but headed to this second warehouse level. Channel passage to passenger passage plus passenger passage to channel passage. Finally, a simple set of returning routes. If dubious, given passenger passage can bypass channel passage way back a year, I'll probably make the less direct route cater specifically to trains on the way to a passenger depot planned for under the main station. Already in progress. Don't worry about the asterisk, it just denotes a segment designated for passenger trains. Channel passage to warehouse upper. See you at port 1. Channel passage to channel drawbridge plus channel drawbridge to channel passage. A legitimately simple return route. Channel passage to upper harbour deck, another port 1/ordinary yard wash up. Lower harbour deck to channel drawbridge plus channel drawbridge passenger to lower harbour deck. Put a pin in that. Skip to lower harbour deck to channel drawbridge passenger plus channel drawbridge passenger to lower harbour deck. A simple return passenger route for the lower deck, an addition to the passenger lines so far that could have a world of implications. Notice, however, the deck incline does not contain a designated passenger route, and back to the previous return route, comprised of identical destinations, the only difference is separation of freight on the way to the bridge, but on the way back, ostensible passenger line is piggybacked by freight, so they are similar. Lower harbour deck to channel passage plus channel passage to lower harbour deck. Much like its cousin, channel passage to passenger passage plus passenger passage to channel passage, this starts close to possible bypass, however the drop this time around is sufficient to justify detour up the incline. Lower harbour deck to harbour drawbridge plus harbour drawbridge to lower harbour deck. Easy. Lower harbour deck to lower channel deck. Currently this returns via channel drawbridge, which would indicate another casualty of the port 1 loop. However, this could very well return any which way, not least of all a simple loop-shaped loop. Passenger passage to channel drawbridge plus channel drawbridge to passenger passage. That's a nice one. Passenger passage to harbour drawbridge plus harbour drawbridge to passenger passage. Easy. And hey, that's the main thoroughfare for the whole heckline right there. Give it some oomph. Passenger passage to lower harbour deck plus lower harbour deck to passenger passage. Thrashing that deck incline, prob would have separated the passenger lines had I foreseen such. Upper channel deck to upper harbour deck. You can double that, and let's skip down, that bar's reached the end thank god, to the reverse duplicate upper harbour deck to upper channel deck, and you can double that. As I mentioned, basically a single deck, synergy etc. Go and watch the build, I won't tell you again. Upper harbour deck to harbour drawbridge plus harbour drawbridge to upper harbour deck. Easy. Upper harbour deck to lower harbour deck plus lower harbour deck to upper harbour deck. Little crossover there, slightly unfortunate, but let's not forget this is a rail yard and will be used to justify imperfections as such. Upper harbour deck to upper channel deck to channel drawbridge. For when you need to pick up something transferred from a train at the special deck, then fix off out of there, probably as part of a capitulatory road trip to join so many other vacuous souls at the ever-strengthened Port 1 loop. Upper harbour deck to upper channel deck special. I don't bloody know, same as Deez's. That's a rootin'. How's that word count looking? Surely an expose on the word count isn't going to take us too far over the allotted... Oh god. Non-functionality of yards. There, I said something about it. I'm not going to flesh this out now. I'll talk about it later. How long shall I go on obfuscating reference to this rail yard by titling it vanilla? Bucket main, until someone chimes in and says, that's not vanilla, it has workshop assets. I've already started calling it the ordinary yard, okay? Just chill. Yep, well, as stated, the ordinary yard is nothing special, though C-Lane prototype und Spiralplatz, that's the name of the interchange, as part of a greater plan to connect yada yada and make We Dubai Now great again. Pew, 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 pew. The HOOTSPAJOOP yard is so fat that when it sits around the magnificently appointed Central Distribution Centre, it sits around the magnificently appointed Central Distribution Centre. Remember all those loop routes? Go and watch the explanation, I won't tell you again. Hugs for you if it's your second encounter with that phrase. Remember that greater plan? Not a plan. Whatever it is, they certainly go together. We've set up the stuff for rail to connect various areas in faux singular fashion, whatever that shall prevail to mean. However it be, the CCBD functions as the beating heart, a rally point for all freight, interconnected as fuck. Where to next? The gaping other side pines to be evened out with another railo change. I've already begun placement of the next to main station passenger train depot I suggested earlier. But there's a lot going into this baby, and the winds of baby go intoism have already pushed me to further nethers. After last episode's heedless amorphousness, I think some solidity has been managed. Rail wasn't the hero we deserved, but the hero we needed. That's all, thanks for watching, and goodbye forever. And I don't want to inundate you with my stringent consideration on this matter. Let's breeze through. As the Omega, and here he goes explaining again. Didn't he just say he was done explaining for 5 seconds? Jesus Christ. Oh, well, gee whiz, like, you know, I was just letting you know that I won't go into too much detail regarding the justifications or nothing.